Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here, which I know a few of you are, so thank you so much for joining me. Today's video is going to be a little bit chaotic because basically I was researching a topic for one video, and whilst I was doing that, I actually noticed that there was like a completely contradictory trend that is also happening at the same time. And I think that's just so interesting that there's basically like two camps of people on the internet that are doing polar opposites of each other. Just two extremes are happening at the same time. And maybe you're identifying with one of them or both of them and you can see both points of view, and it's just interesting. So let's get into it. So the first one is doom spending. And you might be more familiar with like doom scrolling. But basically it's a similar concept that people are overwhelmed with the state of the world, and instead of like spending loads of time scrolling through your phone and trying to ignore it and trying to distract yourself with funny memes or like internet stories or discourse about award show red carpets or whatever, people are turning to purchases to make them feel better and like rebel against today's economic conditions. I think there are kind of two different reasons people are doom spending right now. The first one is that so many people my age, so many young people cannot afford their first home. The property ladders right now are awful. There's a financial crisis. The UK is in recession. Like, it's just not really possible for people to afford it without major help from their parents or, you know, whatever. And instead of sitting on their money and hoarding it and saving up for what feels like an impossible goal, they're instead choosing to splurge it on, you know, luxury items or like feel-good items, just as like open rebellion against this fact, I guess. Instead of, you know, having 50k in the savings for a house deposit that, you know, isn't enough right now, they're instead spending, you know, 5k on luxury handbags, unnecessary or like luxury purchases that maybe they would stop themselves from buying if they thought that they could buy a house, but you know, they can't afford to buy a house right now, so why not spend that money while they have it, while they're young, while they can use it. I think the second reason for doom spending, I mean, I'm sure there's loads of reasons, but the second main reason is the fact that there are multiple world crises going on right now, and the state of the world seems really poor, and people are turning to like basically retail therapy, but they've rebranded it as doom shopping in an effort to feel better. I think this is all to do with psychology and the endorphins we release when we buy something new, and people are trying to capitalize on this feeling by buying more and more to get them through tough times. And it's kind of a hard topic for me to talk about as a sustainability influencer, because overconsumption is one of the worst issues for the climate crisis right now. And I can recognize that fact while also recognizing that the state of the world is so bad, and you know, people need to be finding joy wherever they can. I do admit it's an easy way to feel better quite quickly. This is like, it's a really hard topic for me to talk about. I don't want to preach, I don't want to like make myself holier than thou, but I'm definitely not sitting in this camp of like the two varying trends on the internet, let's just say that. Speaking of, the completely contrasting trend that's happening right now is no buying. And I'm firmly rooted in this camp. So loads of prominent influencers, like one I follow here on YouTube is Lainey Ozark, for example, have posted about how they're doing low buy or no buy years. To put it simply, low consumption is trending right now. People are trying to be really mindful about their consumerism if you sit in this camp. So you're trying to be really considered with the purchases you do make if you are buying, or you're trying to completely stop yourself if you're no buying. And it's definitely a challenge in today's landscape because of all the like advertising we get constantly about what you should be buying, where you should be buying it from, blah, 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 blah. But I do think it's really liberating not buying anything. Like, I've been doing a no buy month this February, kind of by accident, until like halfway through I realized I hadn't bought anything, and I just thought, why not continue it for the whole month? Like, why not really test myself? Like, and I mean no buying is in no secondhand purchases, which is quite big for me. I've never done that before. I normally always buy 1 or 2 things a month from secondhand shops or online or whatever. So yeah, I kind of came on it like accidentally. And then as it was happening, I was pushing myself forward thinking like, well, I've done 2 weeks already, why not do 3, why not do 4? And also at the same time, I was starting to see influencers like Lainey coming out with videos. I think hers was a really sweet idea. It was like everything I didn't buy for my low buy month. And I think that's really sweet, and it definitely shows you how hard it is to resist temptation, I guess. Like she had, I think, a good few many items on her list that she had to, you know, stop herself from buying. And I think that's a really like nice transparency. And I kind of want to do a similar video just about how you're resisting the urge all the time to shop, and that's such a human thing. The really interesting part of this whole thing for me is the fact that these two very different ideas are trending at the same time, and it's very easy to be either firmly rooted in one camp or firmly rooted in the other. Like on one hand, doom spending makes sense. People are buying fashion in particular to try distract themselves from the world. It's kind of always been that way. Like fashion is always a way of being optimistic about your future. Like you're buying for future you, you're buying clothes that you want the world to perceive you as. And that can be a really good escape when it feels like the future is a little bleak right now. But on the other hand, if we don't stop buying as consumers, then we're making the future worse. And I know that's a really horrible thought, and like, you know, I'll probably get some comments saying it's companies' faults, like it's never the consumers, we should be able to buy stuff. And we all have different opinions, but my opinion is that we can all cut down on our spending, especially when it comes to fashion. And if we do, then we're going to make the world a better place, which is what this whole anti-consumerism trend is about. Like, you're literally personally limiting your personal impact on the environment. And that can be really hard. It can be really challenging to take autonomy like that for the climate crisis. And it can also feel like you're not having much of an impact because it's just you. But I promise you, it makes you feel a lot more in control of your life and your future if you're saying, like, I believe this will make a difference. And also, you know, spreading that message online. Like I try to talk a lot about my shopping habits. Like I've talked so much about my rule of 5 year that I did last year, that I'm doing this year. I'm going to do a video on my no buy month for February. And I think I'm also going to be trying to continue that every other month of the year. So like I'll go through hopefully 6 months of this year where I'm not buying anything, and 6 months of this year where I'm trying to really limit what I'm buying. And, you know, I'm still doing that rule of 5, and I'll be buying secondhand, but I'll be trying to like limit myself there as well. And, you know, because I'm speaking about it, someone watching this video might try to do the same thing. I think before we wrap this video up, it might be useful for me to do a couple of tips to stop your overconsumption if you feel like you are doom spending. I mean, I've done a whole video on this, so if you want to go see the video, then that might help, but I'm just going to run through like really quick tips. The first thing I did was stop following influencers on my phone that were promoting fast fashion. Influencers that were talking about Zara and H&M and stuff, I unfollowed them all, and I instead started following more sustainable fashion accounts, slow fashion accounts. Just that really simple switch can, you know, remove the temptation when you're scrolling at night to like shop their wardrobes. Number 2 is I started really paying attention to smaller fashion brands. I've just done a whole video on small fashion brands. There's like 4 really cool, really unique. I think if you are, you know, in the mood to shop and you're splurging anyway, you're doom spending anyway, shop from one of these brands instead. They have such cute pieces. They are trying to limit their environmental impact. You are not giving money to big fashion and like oil companies and whatever, and you'll feel good about the purchase. You can try, like, as a third tip, you can try spreadsheet this, I guess. Keep a track of what you're buying so that you can't lie to yourself. Like, do you remember that video I did on the woman who found out she was spending so much every year at Fashion Nova, she couldn't believe it? Like, if you just keep itemizing your spends, you might be completely shocked about how much you're spending, and that will make you want to change on its own. Like, think about how much of that is fast fashion potentially, and how much of that is like 1 or 2 wears before you throw it out. If you're giving that money to H&M only for you to have to throw away that piece after 4 wears, then that is a waste of money, and you can see that immediately. Like, keep a track also of what you're throwing out, and then like cross it, do you know what I mean? Like, corroborate it. You'll be surprised. I think like the other good tip is just to distract yourself. Like, when you feel the urge to shop, do something else instead. If you're on Instagram and you are seeing like an advert for something that you want to buy, or you know, you're following an influencer still and they have something you want to buy, take yourself out of the moment, like put your phone down, make a cup of tea, or like read a chapter of your book or whatever. If you're still thinking about that item when you come back, save it to like a want to buy list. I have a running want to buy list. I don't touch anything on that list until like a month later. And I have to honestly say to myself, have I thought about this item since? If I haven't, then I don't want it that much. You need to be honest with yourself. Like, do you actually want this item? Are you thinking about it over a certain period of time? Or are you just in the moment, and are you just being influenced? Anyway, I hope this was entertaining. I hope the tips were helpful. I feel like I'm gonna get some really angry comments because I've asked people to not buy. But you know, it's worth it if I've convinced someone to not buy, so I'll weather them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely week, and I will speak to you really soon. Bye.